There's a force more dangerous than corruption, more insidious than lies, and more destructive than crime. Stupidity. Not the funny kind, not harmless ignorance, but a kind of active stupidity that is immune to facts, allergic to reason, and utterly convinced of its own righteousness. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German theologian who resisted the Nazis, believed stupidity was more dangerous than evil. Evil, he said, can be exposed and confronted. But stupidity? It doesn't argue. It doesn't listen. It simply exists and spreads. You can't outsmart stupidity with logic. You can't educate it out of existence. In fact, the more you try to reason with it, the more stubborn it becomes. This kind of stupidity isn't about IQ. It's a mindset, a social virus. And in every society that has collapsed into authoritarianism, extremism, or mass delusion, this virus came first. In this video series, we're going to dissect how stupidity works. Not just in individuals, but in crowds, institutions, and ideologies. We'll trace how it infects minds, distorts truth, empowers the unfit, and blinds even the intelligent. Because if we want to survive as a society, it's not enough to be smart. We have to learn how to recognize stupidity and resist it. This kind of stupidity isn't about IQ. It's a mindset, a social virus, and in every society that has collapsed into authoritarianism, extremism, or mass delusion, this virus came first. In this video series, we're going to dissect how stupidity works, not just in individuals, but in crowds, institutions, and ideologies. We'll trace how it infects minds, distorts truth, empowers the unfit, and blinds even the intelligent. Because if we want to survive as a society, it's not enough to be smart. We have to learn how to recognize stupidity and resist it. They fall into groupthink, echo chambers, and moral cowardice. In this section, we'll break down the conditions that help stupidity thrive: fear and uncertainty, desire to belong, social pressure, intellectual laziness. We'll also examine how propaganda exploits these triggers to replace complexity with cliché, truth with repetition, and thought with noise. Understanding how stupidity spreads isn't just academic. It's the first step to building resistance. You might think the solution to stupidity is more education, more information, more facts. But Bonhoeffer warned us, stupidity isn't cured by logic. It's made worse by it. When someone is deeply stupid, not ignorant but ideologically stupid, they don't respond to evidence. They react to it. They become defensive, hostile, and double down on their beliefs. That's because stupidity in this context isn't about knowledge. It's about identity. And when people tie their identity to what they believe, no matter how false, challenging that belief feels like a personal attack. This is why conspiracy theories thrive. This is why authoritarianism spreads. And this is why rational debate fails. Smart people lose these battles not because they're wrong, but because they're arguing on the wrong battlefield. You can't debate someone who treats facts like enemies. You can only outposition them. Here's how. Speak to shared values, not raw logic. Use stories, not statistics. Don't argue to win, argue to plant doubt. Walk away when resistance turns to ridicule. But most importantly, don't waste your time where it won't matter. Save your energy for those who are open, not those who are lost. Call to action. Right now, think about one conversation you keep having with someone who refuses to change their mind. Ask yourself honestly, are you trying to win or trying to wake them up? Drop that battle. Share this video instead. Shift your effort from debate to direction. In the comments, tell us, what's one belief you tried to challenge, and what happened when logic failed? If stupidity is a fire, then silence is the oxygen that feeds it. Bonhoeffer warned not only about the rise of stupidity, but about the passivity of those who knew better and said nothing. Time and again, history shows us that smart, informed, reasonable people become paralyzed when society starts rewarding ignorance. Why? Because speaking up is costly. Challenging stupidity, especially in public, often means backlash, isolation, and misunderstanding. It means risking your reputation in a world that sometimes punishes clarity more than confusion. So what do the intelligent do? They retreat. They whisper in private. They become spectators. But this retreat creates a vacuum, a silence that stupidity fills. And when enough smart people step back, foolishness steps forward, loud, confident, and unopposed. In this part, we explore why intellectuals go quiet in dangerous times, the social cost of being the voice of reason, how fear of conflict empowers foolishness. We also look at examples: scientists silenced by political pressure, journalists who self-censor, educators afraid to challenge false narratives, and we ask the hard question: is it better to be quiet and safe, or loud and useful? Because intelligence is only power when it's used. Silence may protect your peace, but it also protects. In modern society, stupidity has learned to wear a disguise. It's not clumsy, it's confident. It uses big words, complex charts, and flashy credentials. And worst of all, it often believes it's wise. Bonhoeffer's fear wasn't just of people who didn't know. It was of people who thought they knew, but refused to question. We now live in an era where surface-level intelligence is rewarded. People are trained to sound smart, not be smart. College degrees are confused with wisdom. Eloquence is mistaken for insight. And worst of all, arrogance is seen as authority. This creates a new form of stupidity: institutionalized stupidity. It hides in the language of experts, the confidence of leaders, and the prestige of systems. It's the kind of stupidity that stops questioning, stops listening, and starts repeating. It says, "Trust me, I have the title." It says, "Believe me, I read a book." It says, "Follow me, everyone else does." In this part, we dig into how institutions breed echo chambers, why status is confused with substance, the difference between genuine knowledge and the performance of intelligence. We'll also examine how this type of stupidity becomes dangerous when combined with power, popularity, platforms. Because when stupidity hides behind a mask of intelligence, it becomes harder to challenge and far more destructive. The smartest-sounding people aren't always the smartest, and the loudest ones aren't always worth listening to. There's a reason stupidity spreads so easily. It feels good. It offers something dangerous and seductive: comfort. Stupidity doesn't ask you to change. It doesn't ask you to learn. It doesn't challenge you to grow. It just says, relax. You're already right. And when that message is repeated by a crowd, it becomes intoxicating. Group ignorance provides shelter. It makes people feel safe, included, righteous, and above all, absolved of responsibility. Bonhoeffer noticed how even intelligent people surrendered their minds to the comfort of crowds. In Nazi Germany, many didn't believe the lies. They simply stopped questioning them. Why? Because conformity was easier than courage. In this part, we break down the psychology of group ignorance, how conformity replaces curiosity, why fear of isolation leads to intellectual surrender. We'll examine how society rewards safe thinking and punishes the outliers who challenge it, how people become complicit in stupidity, not through malice but through fatigue. And we'll explore one of the hardest truths. Sometimes it's not the evil people who do the most harm. It's the silent ones, the tired ones, the ones who go along. True resistance to stupidity requires the opposite of comfort. It requires discomfort. It requires the courage to be the one who says, "I don't think this is right," even when it costs you. There's a reason stupidity spreads so easily. It feels good. It offers something dangerous and seductive: comfort. Stupidity doesn't ask you to change. It doesn't ask you to learn. It doesn't challenge you to grow. It just says, relax. You're already right. And when that message is repeated by a crowd, it becomes intoxicating. Group ignorance provides shelter. It makes people feel safe, included, righteous, and above all, absolved of responsibility. Systems that turn education into indoctrination. That replace nuance with certainty. That turn doubt into betrayal. In this part, we explore how political systems weaponize ignorance, why dumbing down the masses is strategic, the role of media in reinforcing thoughtless conformity. We'll look at historical examples: the use of propaganda in Nazi Germany, the erasure of dissent in Soviet Russia, modern disinformation tactics that confuse rather than convince. Stupidity, when politicized, doesn't just spread, it dominates. It silences dissent, paralyzes resistance, and installs itself as truth. We also unpack how the fear of complexity drives people into the arms of simple answers, how chaos makes people crave control, even if that control comes from the incompetent. To fight back, we must protect complexity, protect doubt, protect the right to say, I don't know. Because when stupidity rules, questions become threats. We often assume intelligence is destiny, that smart people, given time, will naturally rise to the top, steer the course, and correct the chaos. But history tells a different story. The smartest people don't always win. In fact, they often lose to louder voices, simpler slogans, and movements powered by certainty, not wisdom. Why? Because intelligence is slow, careful, doubtful. It questions itself. Stupidity is fast, bold, unshakable, and in a world driven by speed and confidence, the thoughtful are often drowned out by the thoughtless. Bonhoeffer warned that when intelligence becomes isolated, mocked, or feared, it doesn't disappear. It retreats. And in that retreat, stupidity fills the void. In this part, we explore the emotional appeal of oversimplified answers, why people crave certainty more than truth, how intelligence struggles in a system built for speed and spectacle. We also unpack the paradox. Smart people often try to understand stupidity, while stupid people try to destroy intelligence. The result? Intelligence becomes hesitant, defensive, while stupidity goes on offense. But awareness is the first step. To resist stupidity, the intelligent must stop retreating. They must stop apologizing for thinking, doubting, and asking hard questions. Smart doesn't mean soft, and truth doesn't need to be loud, but it does need to be present. Stupidity thrives not just in ignorance, but in neglect. It grows in the blind spots, when we look away, when we laugh it off, when we say, "It's not my problem." But it becomes everyone's problem. Bonhoeffer's warning was never just academic, it was urgent. He saw firsthand what happens when societies surrender their thinking, when they allow fear, laziness, and false certainty to replace responsibility. The rise of stupidity isn't just a failure of education, it's a failure of courage. And that means the solution isn't just knowledge, it's will. A willingness to challenge, to speak, to resist. So where do we go from here? You don't need a platform to fight stupidity. You need a spine. You don't need to be perfect. Just present. Here's what you can do. Speak up when silence feels safer. Ask questions when answers feel forced. Defend complexity in a world obsessed with simplicity. Choose truth over tribe, even when it costs you. Because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs more clarity. The most dangerous fools aren't the loudest. They're the ones we tolerate, the ones we excuse, the ones we let lead. But stupidity only wins when smart people stop showing up. Don't look away. Don't sit back. Don't underestimate what one clear voice can do in a crowded room of nonsense. What's one moment where you saw stupidity go unchallenged and wished you had spoken up? Share this video. Start that conversation. Be the one who shows up. Because if not you, who?